Hey everybody, my name is Jack and welcome to my channel. I'm currently studying ultra learning and living it as a lifestyle, documenting and sharing everything I learn along the way. In this video, I'm going to teach you guys how to prepare and deliver an amazing presentation. So let's jump into it. So, in order to achieve this goal, I'm going to be sharing the 3-step framework that I personally use to prepare and deliver my own presentations. The 3 steps are contemplate, conceptualize, and realize. In addition to this, I'm also going to be providing a walkthrough of my own personal presentation so you can start to see how to put these ideas into practice. Step 1, contemplate, essentially begins by answering a very fundamental question. What is the purpose of my presentation? Once you've figured out the purpose of your presentation, you can begin to work backwards in order to identify how to best structure your presentation. And once you know how to structure your presentation, you can then begin to ask yourself, what topics and questions do I need to discuss in order to teach my audience what it is that I'm trying to teach them? So what does this look like in action? So right now you can see my own personal attempt at completing step 1 of the framework. I did this in preparation for a presentation that I have to deliver in a couple of days on AI. And I personally use Notion. I love it. It's simple, it's easy to use, it's free. Of course, you don't have to use Notion, but I highly advise you to do so. So as you can see, I started with the purpose of the presentation, which in my case is to provide a realistic overview of what AI is, how it works, and why businesses such as Geismar, the company I'm pitching to, should invest in AI. Naturally, as you can see, it's very, very, very clear how this presentation should be structured. I need to think about what AI is, how it works, why the company should invest in AI, and then naturally it's always a good idea to provide an opportunity to your audience to ask you questions at the end of your presentation. So if we go one level deeper and we go to the first part of my presentation, what is AI? This is the first point where I start to think about what topics and questions I need to discuss in order to teach my audience what it is that I'm trying to teach them. So in this case, maybe I'm thinking about the history of AI, how it's defined, the types of AI, and so on. You get the picture. I would then go to the second part of my presentation, how does AI work, and just repeat this process until I've got a lay of the land and got the structure knuckled down. And again, I just repeat this for each part of the presentation until I get to the end of my structure, which brings us to step 2. Step 1 is now out of the way, and we've arrived at step 2, conceptualize. The essence of conceptualize is to take all of the hard work that we did in step 1 and then bring it to life. In other words, we start to go through our structure along with the topics and questions that we need to answer, and we begin to ponder what is the best way to explain my point so that the audience can easily understand and follow what it is that I'm trying to say. In all honesty, this is going to vary from slide to slide, but you should start thinking about, is text the best way to explain my point? Do I need some diagrams? Maybe I need to even add some data to my slide. It really just depends, and it's also a great opportunity for you to express your creativity and add a little bit of your own personality too. So what does this look like? So right now on the screen, you can see the finished version of my presentation. I thought it would be a good idea to share some of the slides that I've produced to perhaps provide some inspiration of how you can bring your own ideas to life. So usually when I'm creating my presentation, I first begin by separating it into its consecutive parts. So the structure of this presentation was what is AI? How does AI work, and then finally why invest in AI, and then end the presentation with some questions. And then once I've decided on the structure, I then go into the structure and begin bringing the ideas to life, the points to life that I'm trying to make. And the first point that I was trying to make in order to explain what AI is to actually explain to the audience what AI is not. So I thought a great way to do this would be to actually pick 3 diagrams that symbolize the points I'm trying to make. And the reason why I decided to do this instead of using text is for two reasons. I think generally speaking, simplicity is key. The less text you have on the slide, the better, because the less text that you have on the slide prevents you from reading off of the slide, which could give the audience the impression that you actually don't really know what you're speaking about. And this has the added negative effect of making you sound like a robot, which, frankly speaking, no one really enjoys listening to. So that's just something to watch out for. So just use some icons to symbolize the points you're trying to make. And then once you arrive at this slide, this is your opportunity to showcase your knowledge by verbally explaining each point to engage with the audience. And then in the same section, I also wanted to provide an overview of the history of AI. So usually when we're talking about the history or a certain time period where certain activities that we're interested in are occurring, it's always good to provide some sort of timeline with events. And similar to before, you don't want to put too much information about what happens at each point in time. You actually just want to use this as a trigger to actually begin speaking about that point in more detail. And naturally, this is going to make you sound more expert, and the audience will be more engaged because you're speaking and you're actually channeling your energy towards the audience as opposed to, again, reading off of the slide. And then earlier in the video, I was referencing that sometimes it's good to use data in a presentation. And later in the presentation, I actually wanted to advocate that AI is showing promise as general purpose technology. You really don't need to know what any of this means right now, but the point that I'm trying to make here is that I think this is the kind of point that requires some sort of evidence, and data in this case was a good form of evidence to justify my point. So if you decide to do this, this is actually a good opportunity to go through the data, explain to the audience why this data is significant and how this supports the point you're trying to make, and also provides like a really in-depth view of the thing that you're trying to explain. So those were a couple of examples, guys. Hopefully that was helpful. Now we've finished step 2, we can go to step 3. Congratulations, guys, you've made it to the final step of the framework, realize. It's at this point where you will start rehearsing and practicing your presentation, and you should do so for 2 reasons. The first reason is that this is a great opportunity to identify any gaps in your knowledge. So for example, when you're going through your presentation, perhaps for the first time, there'll be moments where your mind might go blank, and that's totally normal. But it's at this point where you should keep a notepad next to you and write down what it is that you don't know, so that before you rehearse again, you practice and learn what you do not know, so that when you go into the second attempt, you can go in there and you won't make the same mistake again. And you just repeat this process with every attempt until you've filled in all of the gaps of knowledge that you don't have, to create a smooth presentation and to build a sense of confidence that you know what it is that you're speaking about, which is exactly what you want. The second point is that more practice means that you'll become more comfortable with the content that you're trying to teach, which again is exactly what you want, because going into that presentation, you don't want to have any doubt in your mind with such questions such as, did I prepare enough? Do I know what I'm speaking about? Because if you practice enough and do it well, you can go into that presentation and just have a good time. And from my experience, when you're having a good time presenting, the audience can feel it, and it just naturally results in a great presentation. So if you do these steps, you'll prepare well and you'll execute well and you'll deliver an amazing presentation. There you have it, guys. That brings us to the end of this video. Today you learned how to prepare and deliver an amazing presentation. Thank you for watching, and tune in next week to join me on my ultra learning adventure.